Greetings YouTubers, Atari Leaf here. This is my video response to my history in gaming. Response video to Protako82. I saw the video through Marlon Lee. So yeah, I thought I would do my own little history of gaming. How did I start? Well, I grew up in the 70s. I'm 40 years old, so before video games came along, I was still into these. Not this particular model. I'm talking about the full-size games. I started off with pinball. My brother was a big pinball fanatic, and I used to go to the arcades and play pinball with him. He was really good. He could use a quarter and play for an hour on some of these games. He was really, really good. As I got a little older, and the 70s started to come to a close, we got one of those Pong units. Not this particular unit again. I can't remember the brand name of the kind I had. It had 6 games built into it, and it also had the gun for the lights, shooting the dots on the screen. Target shooting, that's it. We didn't keep that for very long because my cousins had the Atari 2600. I played Space Invaders at their house, and I thought it was incredible. So in 1980, we finally picked up an Atari 2600. Now I'm trying to remember, it got me thinking, we bought ours at Sears. So I might not have originally had this unit. I might have had the Sears video arcade unit, which looks a little bit different. Same basic setup, but the Sears units had a different kind of wood grain on them, different finish, different colors. Really nice looking unit. I've got one here somewhere. Hold on. Okay, there's an example of the Sears unit. It's called the Video Arcade Telegames. A little different. That's why sometimes you'll find Sears versions of the carts. Anyway, I'm not sure if this was the one I had or if I had the original heavy, but if I bought it at Sears, I probably should have had this one, I would think. I can't remember for the life of me. Okay, anyway, moving on. Okay, so anyway, yeah, funny little story. Originally, my parents didn't want to get me an Atari, and the reason why is because my cousin's mother thought it would be a great idea. Hey, we've got an Atari. You just buy some games for it, and you can play them at our house. Oh, and since you don't have your own Atari, you might as well just leave the games at our house too. So basically what this woman, my cousin's mother, wanted was for me and my family to go out and buy games, bring them to their house and leave them there so they could play them whenever they wanted to. Yeah, right, that was going to happen. I may only have been 10 years old or 11 years old, but I wasn't stupid. So we eventually did get an Atari 2600 in 1980, and I remember the games we first got. One was Asteroids, and if I remember correctly, Asteroids was $90 Canadian. 90 bucks. We also got Combat, of course, and I believe the third game was Outlaw. And we got Outlaw because I used to play in the arcades with my father a game called Boot Hill, which I believe Outlaw is loosely based on. So I had the Atari for a few years there until about 1983, I believe. Around 1983, I kind of moved into the personal home computers. So we originally had bought an Atari computer. It lasted all maybe a day or two till we returned it. And the simple reason was the software was too expensive. My father said, "Oh, I bought you games for the Atari 2600. I'm not buying you more games for this thing." So we ended up bringing the Atari back because we had friends of ours who had the original Tandy Color computer, the Model 1, the gray one with the chiclet keyboard. They found us a deal to get a used one, the tape player, and they provided us with the software because back then nobody talked about copyrights and pirating games. It was just a matter of, hey, I've got all this software, I'll make you copies. So that was great. My dad loved that idea. Hey, I don't have to buy anything else. I don't have to buy the software. So that's how I started with the Coco. And through the years we had the Coco 1, replaced it with the Coco 2, and then in 1986, I believe, the Coco 3 came out. And so I've been using the Coco through that whole time. Also in that period of time, we had an 8088 PC. Remember the original old PCs they used an 8088 CPU? And one of the games I used to love on that was The Ancient Art of War. Great game. Then probably 1987, or no, 88. It was 88. I finally moved on to the Nintendo Entertainment System. Came with Mario Brothers. Didn't like Mario Brothers, but I played Duck Hunt all the time. I love the Duck Hunt game. Mario, I just wasn't very good at. And then we got a few games for the Nintendo, not a lot, because again, I was now a teenager with a job and I had to buy my own if I wanted them. And of course, being a teenager, I didn't have a lot of disposable income. So I only had a few games for that. Shortly after the Nintendo, I moved on to the TurboGrafx in 1989 when it first came out. So I was an early adopter on the TurboGrafx. I remember being in a Kmart and they had one of these demoed set up. And I played Legendary Axe, the original Legendary Axe, and I thought it was absolutely beautiful. So as soon as I could save up my pennies, I bought a TurboGrafx 16, and I had games like China Warrior, Dungeon Explorer, the Legendary Axe 1, Blazing Lasers, Alien Crush. Great, great system. But I ended up kicking myself because I traded it in about a year later for a Genesis. And the whole reason I wanted to get a Genesis and move away from the TurboGrafx is because of the NHL game. I really love the NHL game. The fact that, you know, it's not just a generic game, it's actually NHL licensed. I could play Doug Gilmour on the Toronto Maple Leafs. That's the guy on my wallpaper on my YouTube channel, by the way. That's Dougie Gilmour. I thought, wow, I can play Doug Gilmour and Wendell Clark and Matt Sundin. I can play all these players that I watch in real life. So this is incredible. I've got to get a Genesis and get this NHL game. In retrospect, that was probably a bad idea because the Genesis and Genesis sports games are so common. TurboGrafx a lot harder to find. But so that's where I went from there. After the Genesis, through the 90s, I kind of moved away from consoles altogether and started to go with PCs. A 486 PC, which I believe we got in 1993. So I started to move into games for that. So I kind of skipped the whole Super Nintendo, PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64 generations, all through the 90s. We did eventually get a Nintendo 64 very late in its run. Same with the PS1, same with the Super Nintendo. But we really only got a couple of games for each. So my console gaming really stopped originally around 1990, 91 maybe, with the Genesis. We got a PS2 eventually in just a few years ago. Never kept it. So the modern games, other than on a modern PC, I don't really have any modern consoles. So I'm kind of stuck in the past. So that's kind of my retro gaming history. I believe I've covered it all. And I'm going to do another video because it got me thinking about this. And I'd like to ask the question, well, I'll wait till the next video. But this is my retro gaming history. So I hope you enjoyed it. Probably boring. Anyway, thanks everybody. This is Atari Leaf. Have a great day.